Welcome to PBS 39's Scholastic Scrimmage. Scholastic Scrimmage is brought to you by the members of PBS 39 and by...
Scholastic Scrimmage is sponsored by St. Luke's University Health Network, the region's leading provider of medical education. For more than 100 years, St. Luke's has been dedicated to educating physicians, nurses, and healthcare professionals. To learn more, call St. Luke's InfoLink, toll free at 866 St. Luke's, or visit sluhn.org.
Support for PBS 39's educational programming is provided by the Deluxe Corporation Foundation, proud to support quality programming on PBS 39.
Scholarships provided by the Air Products Foundation. And now, here's your host, Joe Pacetti.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scholastic Scrimmage on PBS 39. I'm your host, Joe Pacetti. Joshua Foer, author of Moonwalking with Einstein and the remarkable Atlas Obscura compendium, spent a great deal of time researching and reporting on how individuals memorize things. To use his phrasing, once upon a time, this idea of having a trained, disciplined, cultivated memory was not nearly so alien as it would seem to us to be today. He continues to note that, as bad as we are at remembering names and phone numbers and word-for-word instructions from our colleagues, we have really exceptional visual and spatial memories. In Moonwalking with Einstein, Foer starts off as a journalist covering the World Memory Championship, and yes, that is a thing. Then, after a year of intensive training with no prior background in memory-related Olympiads, Foer goes on to represent the United States in the World Memory Championships. His journey is remarkable, as it shows that our minds are capable of recalling and organizing facts in unique ways. Mainstream memorization isn't dead, it's simply dormant. And today, the Saucon Valley Panthers and the Catasauqua Rough Riders will show us what knowledge looks like when it rears its formidable head. Let's meet the teams. We'll start with the team from Saucon.
I'm Emma Patterson, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Cora Shine, and I'm a junior.
I'm Cecilia Zimmerly, and I'm a junior.
I'm Nicholas Morosky, and I'm a sophomore.
Saucon's coach is Cameron Fowler. And now the team from Catasauqua.
I'm Jacob Becker, and I'm a senior.
I'm Mitchell Phillips, and I'm a senior.
I'm Chloe Andrews, and I'm a senior.
I'm Lucas Polzinski, and I'm a senior.
Catasauqua's coach is Janet Schmidt. The judges for today's contest are Sally Campbell, Gary DeLeo, and Kathleen Steele. To our audience, this contest requires rapid recall of facts and favors the resolute. Performances on this stage are not necessarily reflective of these students' academic experiences. At the end of the season, the two final teams will win scholarships for their schools from the Air Products Foundation. And remember, it's always easier to be an armchair quizmaster than a competitor in this arena. We understand the rules, so let's begin the contest with the toss-up. What ordinal number applied to Kepler's equal areas in equal times law is also applied to Newton's law of motion, usually expressed as F equals ma? We're looking for Kepler's second law. The second law. Toss-up. What Wyoming politician who served as Secretary of Defense during the first Gulf War later served 2 terms as Vice President under George W. Bush? Caddy.
Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney is correct, and your bonus. The sound of the axe falling on the trees precedes the final curtain of what Anton Chekhov drama about the family of Madame Renevsky? The Cherry Orchard is what we're looking for there. Toss-up. Carl Johnson and Tommy Vercetti are protagonists of what video game series by Rockstar Games, whose setting includes Liberty City and San Andreas? Saucon.
GTA.
GTA or Grand Theft Auto, as the formal title is called. We would have accepted either one. Perfect. And your bonus. What general who lost the Battle of Zama earlier used a double envelopment tactic to win at Cannae, though he failed to capture Rome for Carthage? We've gone from GTA to Hannibal. Looking for Hannibal there. Logical step. Toss-up. There are alpine and Arctic forms of what lichen-rich biome, whose name means treeless mountain tract? Caddy.
Tundra.
Tundra is correct, and your bonus. In 1959, what University of Iowa astronomer wrote a Scientific American article about his namesake radiation belts that surround the Earth? Mitchell.
The asteroid belt?
We're looking for Van Allen, the Van Allen belt. Toss up. What city, home to the unfinished pyramid-shaped Ringyong Hotel and a tower named after the Juche ideology, is the capital of North Korea? Saucon.
Pyongyang.
Pyongyang is correct. And your bonus. Waymo is the cybersecurity incubator Jigsaw are subsidiaries of what company, led by CEO Larry Page, that also owns Google? Alphabet. Alphabet is the company. Toss up. What physician talks to ghosts on the island of Glubbdubdrib and meets the small people of Lilliput in a Jonathan Swift novel about his travels? Caddy.
Oliver's Travels?
That is incorrect. No, that is correct. We will accept Gulliver's Travels for that one. Or Lemuel Gulliver. The actual name would have been fine. And your bonus. What father of Edward VII and member of the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha became prince consort after marrying Queen Victoria? Mitchell.
Albert.
Albert is correct. Toss up. What woman who played a princess in Roman Holiday and Holly Golightly in Breakfast at Tiffany's shared her surname with an actress named Catherine? Saucon.
Audrey Hepburn.
Audrey Hepburn is correct. And your bonus. What name is shared by a bite, also known as the Bight of Bonny, at a former secessionist state of the Igbo people in southeastern Nigeria? Biafra is what we were looking for. Toss up. What practice, which was the target of the nuclear option in 2017 and can be ended by a vote of cloture, allows senators to delay voting? Caddy.
Filibuster.
Filibuster is correct. Your bonus. Which female saint invoked against thunder and lightning is the namesake of a California city 100 miles northwest of Los Angeles? Mitchell.
San Diego.
Barbara. St. Barbara. That's what we were looking for. Toss up. What compound structure was deduced by Kekulé is mentholated to form toluene and is a 6-membered ring with alternating single and double bonds? Benzene. Benzene was the response.
Lightning round!
At the beginning of the round, we had a coin toss. Saucon, you had won the coin toss. So what I will do is I will present you with 2 categories. You select one of those categories. The one that you choose not to respond to will go over to Caddy, okay? You'll have 1 minute to respond, and anybody can buzz in, no conferring. Your 2 options are light and heavy and ancient statues.
Light and heavy.
Light and heavy it is. Answer the following about light and heavy substances. Lightest halogen.
Fluorine.
Correct. Molecule made of 2 deuterium atoms bonded to oxygen.
Pass.
Lightest aldehyde used as a preservative.
Formaldehyde.
Correct. Heaviest stable element whose atomic number is 82.
Radon.
Incorrect. The chemical formula of the lightest gas.
H2.
Correct. Heaviest element naturally produced outside of supernovas.
Plutonium.
Incorrect. Volcanic rock that floats.
Pumice.
Correct. The densest natural element.
Plutonium.
Incorrect. Piece of lab equipment that spins rapidly, separating materials by density.
Centrifuge.
Correct. Within 1 degree Celsius or Kelvin, at standard pressure, liquid water reaches maximum density at this temperature.
4 degrees Celsius.
Yes, we will accept that response. Okay. Well done, Saucon, with the light and heavy. Okay. So, Caddy, that's going to leave us with ancient statues, for better or worse. Same rules apply. We have 1 minute. Anybody can buzz in. If you don't know the response, just buzz in and say no answer. No conferring. On which of the 7 continents were these statues constructed? The Great Sphinx of Giza.
Africa.
Correct. Venus de Milo.
Europe.
Correct. Thousands of statues of soldiers known as the Terracotta Army.
Asia.
Correct. The equestrian sculpture of Marcus Aurelius.
No answer.
Figurines called dogu, made during the prehistoric Jomon period.
No answer.
Giant heads called moai on Easter Island, which is owned by a country on this continent's mainland.
Africa.
Incorrect. Venus of Willendorf.
Europe.
Correct. Many reclining figures called kakmul, found at sites like Chichen Itza.
Asia.
Incorrect. The People's Kore, which was made during the Archaic period.
No answer.
Many bird figurines carved from soapstone by the Shona people.
No answer.
Okay. So that will take us away from our lightning rounds for this component. We'll have a second lightning round later on in the contest. That will bring us back to our toss-up questions. During the Battle of Gravelines, fire ships were used in an attempt to break up what military force sent by Philip II to attack England in 1588? Caddy.
Spanish Armada.
That is correct, and your bonus. What is the name for the angle at which a ray of light strikes a surface, measured relative to a line perpendicular to the surface? Mitchell.
Refraction.
Incidence or incident angle. We would have accepted either one. Toss up. What poem, in which the golden shovel is visited by pool players who lurk late, was written by Gwendolyn Brooks and ends most lines with the word we? The poem is We Real Cool, is the poem. Toss up. What country, whose flag depicts its highest point of Chimborazo, is home to Guayaquil, controls the Galapagos Islands, and has its capital as Quito? Saucon.
Ecuador.
Ecuador is correct, and your bonus. Jamie Vardy plays on what English soccer team, which shockingly won the Premier League in the 2015-2016 season? Only the captain can answer.
Leicester.
Yes, we'll accept that. Leicester is the appropriate response, but it's still the same. We'll accept that response. Toss up. The father of Pepin the Short and grandfather of Charlemagne was the victor of the Battle of Tours, a mayor of the palace nicknamed the Hammer. Caddy.
Richard.
That is incorrect. Question goes over to Saucon. Charles Martel. Charles Martel was the correct response. Toss up. What son of Liriope and Cephasus spurned the love of the nymph Echo and later committed suicide after falling in love with his own reflection? Caddy.
Narcissus.
That is correct. And your bonus is a visual. You can put your attention up on the monitor. Pencil and paper ready. What is the cotangent of angle x, given that the sine of x is 20 divided by 29, and the cosine of x is 21 divided by 29? Mitchell.
21 over 20.
That is correct. Toss up. What scientists' Annus Mirabilis papers include on the electrodynamics of moving bodies, which included the theory of special relativity? Saucon.
Einstein.
Einstein is correct. Mount Pico, Portugal's highest point, is on what group of islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean? The Azores, the Azore Islands. That brings us to halftime. The score at the half is Saucon Valley 120, Catasauqua 115. Let's have a hand for our teams. At the break during each show, we like to take an opportunity to get to know more about our competitors. This week we're going to find out what person, past or present, each of our contenders on stage would have dinner with and why. We'll start with Saucon.
I would have dinner with Abraham Lincoln to discuss his Emancipation Proclamation.
I think if I had to choose, it would be Hillary Clinton, just because I find she's very influential to me.
I'd like to have dinner with Elon Musk because I think his exploits in advancing occupying Mars are really cool.
I would like to have dinner with Jackie Chan, just because he seems to be a cool guy.
That is awesome. I agree. Jackie Chan would be a remarkable dinner guest. Caddy.
Honestly, like, don't get like offended or anything, but like Adolf Hitler, because like, I like to see like what his thought process was for like exactly what he did. Like to see if I can get more like an in-depth analysis of him as a person.
I would say Blake Shelton because he's one of my favorite country singers.
Say Michael Scott from The Office, because I want to hear all of his secrets to business.
I would like to sit down and eat with Kevin Malone because maybe we could talk over a nice bowl of Malone's famous chili.
This is probably the most diverse group of dinner guests that we would possibly have. I would hope that they don't sit together, or maybe that would be better. I have no idea. Let's continue our contest with a toss-up, guys. What group whose language was given an 86-character syllabary by Sequoia was forcibly removed from the American Southeast in the Trail of Tears? Caddy.
Cherokee.
Cherokee is correct. And your bonus, what man who became president after the death of Zachary Taylor was the last president from the Whig Party? Mitchell.
John Tyler.
Incorrect. Millard Fillmore. Fillmore was the correct response. Toss-up. What instrument, whose virtuoso players include Jacqueline Dupre and Pablo Casals, has 4 strings tuned C, G, D, A, and is held between the knees?
The cello.
Caddy.
Oh, cello.
The cello is correct. And your bonus, newborns that sleep on their sides or are born premature are more prone to what most common cause of mortality in children 1 to 12 months old? Mitchell.
SIDS.
SIDS is correct. Toss-up. What character, who wonders where the Central Park Ducks go in the winter after he leaves Pensy Prep, is the narrator of The Catcher in the Rye? Saucon.
Holden Caulfield.
Holden Caulfield is correct. And your bonus, what modern-day nation was home to both Harry Purcell and the man who quoted Purcell's Abdelazar suite in The Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra?
Austria.
United Kingdom, or Great Britain. Toss-up. What TV show, whose original 1970s cast was called The Not Ready for Primetime Players, is broadcast from New York on the title weekend day? Saucon.
Saturday.
Saucon.
Saturday Night Live.
Saturday Night Live is correct. And your bonus. Damon Wildeve dies while unsuccessfully trying to save Eustacia Vi from drowning in what Victorian author's novel, The Return of the Native? Thomas Hardy was the correct response. Toss up, pencil and paper ready. How many pounds of wood could a woodchuck chuck in an 8-hour workday if every minute he chucks 2 pounds of wood? Caddy.
960.
960 pounds is correct. And your bonus. Charlottetown is the capital of what smallest Canadian province, which is off the north coast of Nova Scotia? Mitchell.
Nova Scotia.
Incorrect. Prince Edward Island is what we were looking for. It's okay. That's fine.
Lightning round!
So Saucon, you had the first selection. That means, Caddy, you guys will have the selection this time around. The 2 categories you have to choose from, not very similar. Mothers and sporting siblings.
Okay, we'll do sporting siblings.
Sporting siblings? Excellent. Again, 1 minute. Anybody can buzz in. No conferring on the questions. Give the surname shared by these pairs of sporting siblings. Tennis players Venus and Serena.
Williams.
Correct. NFL quarterbacks Peyton and Eli.
Manning.
Correct. Tennis doubles partners Bob and Mike.
No answer.
Basketball players Steven and shot putter Valerie.
Nash.
Incorrect. 2016 triathlon gold and silver medalists Johnny and Alistair.
No answer.
The highest scoring pair of brothers in NHL history, Brent and Wayne.
Gretzky.
Correct. Boxing brothers Vladimir and Vitaly.
No answer.
Basketball Hall of Famers Cheryl and Reggie.
No answer.
NFL defensive end Michael and tight end Martellus.
Bennett.
Correct. Ivorian soccer players Yaya and Kolo.
No answer.
Okay, that was all the questions. Well done, Caddy. Salkin. Mothers is the category. 1 minute, no conferring. Who is the mother of Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi?
No answer.
Kane.
Eve.
Correct. England's Prince Harry, the younger brother of Prince William.
No answer.
Liza Minnelli.
No answer.
John Quincy Adams.
Abigail Adams.
Correct. Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein.
No answer.
King John, who ruled England from 1199 to 1216.
No answer.
Irene Joliot-Curie.
Marie Curie.
Correct. Queen Elizabeth I.
No answer.
Carrie Fisher.
Debbie Fisher.
Incorrect. It was Debbie Reynolds. Debbie Reynolds was the correct response there. Okay. Well played, Salkin. That's going to bring us back to our toss-up questions. 2013 scandal in what province over a canceled gas plant in Mississauga led to the fall of Premier Dalton McGuinty and higher prices in Toronto? Salkin.
Ontario.
Ontario is correct. And your bonus, what 9-letter adjective, meaning shapeless, refers to solids like glass or resin that lack a long-range, crystalline structure?
Amorphous.
Amorphous is correct. Toss-up. What country's imperial line traces from the legendary Emperor Jimmu to the 125th and current emperor who sits on the chrysanthemum throne, Akihito? Salkin.
Japan.
Japan is correct. Your bonus. In what board game do players build cities and roads on the edges of hexagonal tiles and trade resources such as sheep and wool?
Settlers of Catan.
Correct. Do any of you play that? You should. Just don't hoard resources. Toss-up. What opera is about a man who employs the servant Leporello, murders the Commendatore after being dragged to hell, and is by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart? Don Giovanni is the correct response. Toss-up. What Central American nation, whose port city of Cristobal is on Manzanillo Island, is to the northwest of Colombia and is home to a namesake canal? Caddy.
Panama.
Panama is correct. And your bonus. Nitrogen, which has a half-filled p subshell, has a total of how many valence electrons? Mitchell.
5.
5 is correct. Toss-up. Cosmic rays mostly consist of what particles, which are formed by 2 up quarks and a down quark, and which determine the atomic number? Salkin.
Protons.
Protons is correct. And your bonus. What animal did the Irish hero Cuchulainn get his name from after killing one belonging to the smith Cullen? A dog. A dog was the correct response. Toss-up. What painting, whose background includes an etching of a wharf depicts a seated woman facing left and is titled Arrangement in Gray and Black, number 1. Whistler's Mother was the correct response. Toss-up. What institution was led by Tomás de Torquemada and prosecuted Moriscos, and allegedly unconverted Jews in a country ruled by Ferdinand and Isabella? Caddy.
Spain.
Can you be more specific?
Wait, what do you mean? Kingdom of Spain?
Incorrect question will go over to Salkin.
Empire?
Incorrect. We were looking for Spanish Inquisition. It was asking for the institution, not just the country. Toss-up. What aristocrat helps to save her brother Steva's marriage after an affair with Count Vronsky and throws herself under a train in a Leo Tolstoy novel? Caddy.
War and Peace?
Incorrect. Question goes over to Salkin.
Anna Karenina?
That is correct. And your bonus. What author of the poetry collection Tender Buttons wrote a book from the perspective of her companion in the autobiography of Alice B. Toklas? Gertrude Stein. Toss-up. What butterfly-shaped gland has 2 lobes connected by an isthmus, becomes enlarged in a goiter in the neck, and requires iodine to form thyroxine? Caddy.
The thyroid?
The thyroid is correct, and your bonus. Science contrasts accuracy, which is a measurement's nearness to a true value, with what notion of whether repeated measurements are in close value?
Precision?
Precision is correct. Toss-up. What war, in which the Army of the North was defeated at the Battle of Riasca de la Plama, ended in 1848 with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo? Salkin.
Spanish-American War?
That is correct, and your bonus. Sean Spicer hid among a group of bushes at the White House following the May 2017 firing of what former FBI director?
James Comey.
Only the captain can buzz in.
James Comey.
James Comey is correct. Toss-up. What leader who ordered purges and cracked down on followers of the Fethullah Gulen following a failed July 2016 coup is the president of Turkey? Salkin.
Erdogan?
That is correct, or Erdogan. And your bonus. Jack Burden researches his ancestor Cass Mastern in what 1946 novel in which populist politician Willie Stark is assassinated? All the King's Men. Toss-up. Pencil and paper ready. If June 5th is on a Thursday, on what day of the week will July 10th fall, given that June has only 30 days? Okay, guys. So we're going to actually have to stop there, so we won't be able to accept responses to that question. That brings us to the end of our contest. Our final score, Salkin 255, Catasauqua 225. A very close contest. Let's have a hand for both of our teams. It's always a pleasure to watch the best and the brightest showcase their immense talents, and we wish Catasauqua the best of luck in their academic endeavors. On behalf of Scholastic Scrimmage and PBS 39, thank you for your continued support and viewership. Though they may be at times teams of rivals, one truth remains: you can't beat brains.
Scholastic Scrimmage is brought to you by the members of PBS 39 and by
Scholastic Scrimmage is sponsored by St. Luke's University Health Network, the region's leading provider of medical education. For more than 100 years, St. Luke's has been dedicated to educating physicians, nurses, and healthcare professionals. To learn more, call St. Luke's InfoLink, toll free at 866 St. Luke's, or visit sluhn.org.
Support for PBS 39's educational programming is provided by the Deluxe Corporation Foundation, proud to support quality programming on PBS 39.
This program is recorded at the PPL Public Media Center at PBS 39 in Bethlehem.